Hello there, Brick Fanatics. When you first saw the LEGO Smart Brick, there is a good chance that two questions went through your head. What and why? Earlier this week, the LEGO Group threw a big fancy shindig in London showing off the Smart Play LEGO sets to a bunch of different media. We had the opportunity to attend. I made a video on it at the time trying to explain a little bit of the what behind these sets, what they actually do, and what potentials they have for future use, because I feel like the LEGO Group is maybe struggling to communicate that particular message. I say that because one of the senior vice presidents of the LEGO Group in this video, you'll see it in a second, literally said, "Our big challenge is explaining what this is." The point of that video, as I stated at the time, was not to be a review, not to say thing good or thing bad, but rather to give a little bit of information about the Smart Brick, talk about what potential uses it has, and what potential downfalls and pitfalls it has as well. Now I'm back to talk about the why. Why did the LEGO Group do this? Why did they think that now was the right time? And indeed, why did they start with Star Wars? As said, at the event we had the opportunity to speak with a pair of senior figures within the LEGO Group. Federico Bega, Senior Vice President of Product New Business at the LEGO Group, and Lena Dixon, Senior Vice President of Product Core at the LEGO Group. What do those titles mean? I'm not entirely sure, and this was a consistent challenge at the event, was we kept asking, not just us, but all of the media there, kept asking people questions, and they had to keep saying, "I'm sorry, that wasn't necessarily the part of the project that I was involved in." You'll see a little bit of that in this footage, but certainly these two senior vice presidents did their absolute best to answer as many questions as they could about why the LEGO Group had decided to design this new Smart Play way of playing. Now we're going to have a senior vice president sandwich here because I had two opportunities to speak with Federico Bega. So we're going to start with him, we're going to go over to Lena Dixon, and we're going to go back to Federico for a second interview. But right up top, in case you don't want to sit through the entirety of the interviews, the particular insights that I thought were the most interesting include the fact that a lot of product testing and market research went into this. They play tested these extensively. So a lot of the specific design choices for Smart Play came from actually giving these things to kids and seeing how they responded to them. And that's why they ditched a bunch of things, including screens and a prescriptive story for this. Also interesting, I think, why did they start this with LEGO Star Wars? Basically because everybody loves LEGO Star Wars and that's an easy win. But both of these senior vice presidents made it clear that while Star Wars is the starting point, there is definitely an awful lot more coming on the horizon. What could those different kinds of sets possibly be? I guess we will have to wait and see. Anyway, I'll turn the rest of this video entirely over to those interviews. Apologies in advance for the quality of the audio here in particular. Unfortunately, the event was very, very noisy and it was difficult to get good audio. I got nice clear audio-ish of the actual speakers who were talking, but if anybody was, for example, asking a question behind the camera, they just weren't picked up by the microphone at all. So I've had to sub in a few captions here and there in order to explain what people are actually asking. Do let us know what you think of the answers in these interviews and whether or not you feel they satisfactorily answer your questions about Smart Play. Do make sure that you do all of the rest of the YouTube things, give this video a thumbs up, etc, etc, etc. I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching in advance. Could you talk to kind of the best case scenario for LEGO in terms of consumers picking this up over a more traditional LEGO set? So a parent goes into a store, they see this and they see a non-Smart Play set next to it. What is your hope there for why they're then going to kind of turn towards the interactive rather than the traditional LEGO brick?
Yeah, and I would probably not put it in those terms of us like wanting them to always prefer this. This is a new dimension, and we know from like extensive research we've done that majority of kids and parents like it so much that they are playing more frequently and they're playing for longer periods of time. But we're not moving away from also our core, who we are. So we will still have LEGO sets that don't have interactivity, and we still like very much love and care that experience. So this is a bonus on top for those that are looking for it. So it's not. I think the biggest job that we have, and that personally I'm more focused on, is making sure that it's understood. That's probably our biggest challenge and the top of mind kind of priority. Make sure that people understand what it is, what is the benefit, how to use it, and then it's their choice. We're still going to be able to offer like a wide variety of types of play with it. This is just like broadening the universe and the options. What I mean the challenge is before you have it in your hands. I mean the learning that we've had is once kids have the product, the box in their house, and we've done very realistic representative kind of tests of that experience where we just leave the box and nothing else. We don't explain it. We don't share any marketing assets. We just tell, see if you understand it. They figure it out very fast, like with the building instructions and so on. It's more the before you have it, what it is that you need, that this is, right? That's the piece that I think it's a focus for us to get across. Just to understand that this is something that will make things come to life, and what is a smart brick and how it works with the smart tag. And I think those are the things that before you actually have a set in front of you, it's a little bit, it has just a bit more of an extra layer of explanation. So the hardware will be able to support any new launch. What can happen is, let's say we launch a product in 2 years from now, and someone wants to use the brick that they bought today in that set. Then the only restriction there is that you would need to update the brick. It's a very simple process. When you get a Smart Play product, in the build-in instructions, it explains that if you want, you can connect your brick to an app in your phone. It allows a lot of features. It allows you to kind of customize the volume. It allows you to have data on how your kid is playing, how long your kid is playing, how the brick is being used, and so on. In that same app, you can decide to update the brick. You just put it on the charger, and it updates from your phone. I think it takes just a few minutes. So it's a fairly easy process, and so you could take a brick from today, and in 2 years' time, you can use it in whatever new sets are being launched. It took years to figure out how to make all the technology that we needed for this to have the play that we wanted. So we had to decide pretty early on what was the brick that we would put it in. This is probably the most iconic known brick on one hand, and it's also the one that has the most versatility. It's not too small, it's not too big, so you can use it in many different ways. And it's also the size that allowed us to put everything that we needed in it. So for now, it's in this 2x4, and there's no plans to have different shapes of smart bricks.
Could you speak to the product testing that you did with this? Were there any major learnings that came from that over the course of working on this that really kind of cemented or kind of changed the direction that you were working on with the project?
I think probably, once again, probably not in Fanatics.
No, I can speak to that absolutely, because that's a play experience, and there's been like tons. That's why I was like, I don't know where to start. But like, of course, we've learned and tweaked the experience so much through those learnings. Like, for instance, what are the type of gestures that are intuitive for kids? What are the type of reactions from the brick that are easily understood? How free the play needs to be. You know, there were versions of this where it was like it was a pretty prescribed story that we wanted the kids to play, and the kids said, "That's cool, but I also just want to goof around. I just want to play with this and see what it does." So there were a lot of learnings along the way. We learned that definitely no screens is a very appreciated kind of feature. The fact that this is part of a platform that can be taken from one model to the other. So there was tons of learnings across the research done.
Some critics might say that kids can kind of generate their own kind of sounds. How would you respond to that, and how would you say that the smart brick kind of still improves the play experience when kids can use their imagination and make that sound?
Yeah, I think in the testing that we've seen, it doesn't remove the fact that kids create their own stories and their own sounds. It just enhances and brings new things to it. And it was very important for us, like that was a very focused attention point, that this was a trigger for imagination, right? So like, if they felt we were telling them how to play, then we were really focused on how not to do that. So there's some play triggers, of course, there's some like initiators of play and things, but it's very important that kids can just play out what they're imagining. And that's why I really like the plays back more than interactive, as a term, because it's the kid that is in charge. It's the kid that is the one creating an action for it to have a reaction.
This is about adding to something that's already amazing. So it's to add the more play, to you say respond to the fact that we saw in research that kids were really asking us or asking for toys to be more responsive. I guess inspired by digital, but looking for their toys, physical toys, to be more responsive. So that's the opportunity that was there. But I don't know. I've worked for the Lego Group for 23 years. For me, having the Lego bricks come to life is like a dream come true. So it's both a vision. I don't know if it's a gap, but we wanted to keep innovating and yeah, bring this vision to life really to complement what's already there. So part of the lessons we've learned is also for this to be screen-free. So you mentioned Hidden Side. Video is another one where screens were very much a part of it. And we learned that this was not the optimal way for kids to having to go between digital and physical or screen and bricks. So we wanted this to be purely, you could say, with technology. We mentioned digital because you can download an app which also gives you access to Bluetooth. You can update, your brick, etc. But you don't need a screen to do this. So this was probably one of the biggest learnings for us, and really make this technology quite invisible because it's like you see the kids' reaction in the video. When you shake it, you wake it, and it's kind of magic. So we wanted to make it more intuitive and without the screens. This is the start of Lego Smart Plate. So we will continue to bring updates and new themes and new technology along with it. So this is just the beginning. So more things will come as we move forward. Yeah. It's one thing amongst, you could say, the standard Lego system and play. So definitely, we call it ourselves the future of Lego play because we want to keep innovating. But it's not like we say that, this is the only thing. This is something you can play with additionally and make your whole Lego bin come to life, like Fed is saying. So it's one part of the Lego play for sure, not the only part. It's to keep evolving them. So really bring updates, bring it into new themes, keep adding and expanding, and also bring new technology that's already in pipeline. So much more to come.
We've always known that kids dream of toys that do more. Like that insight is been true for decades actually, like the dream of toys that come to life and respond to them. But they've started to be more demanding in that sense in the last few years. And about 8 years ago, the head of what we call the Creative Play Lab, which is the area in the Lego Group that really looks to the long-term innovation, more breakthrough innovation, was led by Tom Donaldson. It was him who actually had this vision where he said, you know what, I think we're at a moment in time where the technology that exists will allow us to invent something that if we're committed as a company, we can make it happen. So it started as a very kind of explorative project, and then the more it progressed, the more we realized, there's 1,000 things to solve, but it's not impossible. So it's about 8 years ago that I would say it's mostly Tom that had the vision, and he shared it with senior leaders, and the leadership kind of believed in him and in the opportunity, and here we are, 8 years later. It's a reality.
It's one thing to have the vision, but I imagine like the technological progress and the progress of implementing on things isn't necessarily linear. Could you talk a little bit about how you work on that and how you overcome kind of challenges on something of this kind of scale and complexity?
Yeah, I can speak to that superficially because I'm first of all, I'm not an engineer, and I haven't been part of the 8 years process. I'm more personally involved in making this a business reality in the last couple of years. But it was a very iterative process. Let's say figuring out, first of all, how to make everything fit in a brick, because we always knew we wanted this to fit our system. We always knew this can't be something that's just separate, and we're inventing, something that is like a different division of our products. This has to be something that it's true to who we are. We are a system in play. We're a creative system in play. And this has to be a dimension to that. So what needs to be in a brick? What does a brick need to do that? And then how do we fit the technology in that? But then it was always play that led the way. It was never technology that led the way, right? It was like, what does this brick need to do? And is there a technology that can do that? And we were constantly learning around, well, we thought kids would like this, but they actually like that better. So, okay, the technology needs to be different. Or we thought they would play doing this, but they're playing doing that. So the technology needs to be different again. So it was a very iterative process. And we had to partner with the right people and bring the right capabilities on board. And probably one of the projects with the most iterative learning cycle, I would say, that we've ever done.
I'm curious about that iterative process and looking at the various different things that the LEGO Group has done in this kind of space in the past with Mario and video and Hidden Side and all of these. And talking to people today, there's been a lot of talk about how this is very screen-free instead, and how that was led by these test sessions. I'm interested to know kind of more about that process of finding what kind of, not just what kids are after, what parents are after, and what the consumers are after, and how you kind of pair that vision with what the LEGO Group was hoping to do with this product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always kind of, when I think of those projects, sometimes I think, like an analogy I use personally is like the Apollo program, right? Everybody remembers Apollo 11 as a mission that landed on the moon. Not many people remember Apollo 10 or 9 or 8, but they wouldn't have happened without those. So in many ways, I think all those projects that you mentioned gave us a lot of the learnings and the capabilities that we've infused into this. So for instance, we don't want a screen for this project in particular. It needs to be platform, part of our system in play. Even if the interactive play is not there, the products need to be great LEGO products. So they have to have really good building kind of experience and really good play experience. Even if the kid wants to grab the smart brick and put it aside and not play with it. And a lot of those kind of learnings came from video, Mario, Hidden Side. So it's not just the research we've done for this project in particular, where we did a lot. We put it in front of kids and parents and left it in their house, but it's also all the other insights we were getting from all these other projects that we were infusing into this one. And then there are things that we always knew were important for us in terms of who we are, our identity, and the vision that we have for play for the future. So it was always about, it needs to drive imagination, it needs to drive creativity, it needs to enhance physical play. So those were things that were always, I would say, like I don't know where I would call it, a moral compass or an identity compass, but we knew that that's what we wanted this to be. So that was part of a very, back and forth, but with that very clear kind of lighthouse.
So when in Creative Play Lab, these guys have got these amazing ideas, they've come up with this idea for a platform, technological bricks and things. How do you then think about how we can translate this into something that becomes part of the product? What's that kind of process like?
Well, yeah, I mean, it needs to be a good business as well, right? So, and that's not easy when you need to create new technology. I think this would never have been possible if you would not have had, as a company, commitment from the start, right? So you need to believe in it. You need to, not be timid, and commit to a certain scale, right? Otherwise, you never get it to a place where it's a healthy business, right? So it's that balance that is critical, and I think that's where our CEO and our senior leadership always had the vision to say, okay, if you want to do something like this, it takes a certain belief as a company in it. So I think that was really the thing that made the business side possible as well. Because if you want to do, low volumes, few products, then you'll never get the scale, the innovation, the investment payback, and the things that you need for it.
And then there must be thinking that goes into kind of, what do we start with in this? Because you're talking about the innovation, the ideas that you guys have got in Creative Play Lab. but they must be much greater than what you've launched in these initial products. So how do you decide how far to go with that first kind of collection to introduce it to the world?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, this is just the beginning. There's more to come, but I think it's a mix of what we can do well and what is, the right pace that our customers and consumers can also kind of take with us, right? This is a pretty significant different way of playing. It takes a little, it's not very hard, but it takes a little bit of explanation more than what they're used to. We have a very famous, recognizable experience, so people assume that this is more of the normal, and then you need to explain that. So we had to find that right balance to say this is a leap, but it's not a leap too far, too fast. And I think that's the kind of conversation we were having, where it's like, this is an amazing new play experience that's a new dimension. We could take it here, but that's going to be too far, too fast for many different people. So that was kind of the internal dialogue that we had. But of course, there's a roadmap behind it in thinking that I cannot speak to in detail, but that of course is planned out.
On that subject and on that kind of roadmap, could you speak a little more about how you decide how much is enough for right now, and kind of where you decide to draw the line in terms of ideas that might be things you need to build up to rather than doing straight away?
Well, I cannot discuss specifics, so it's a little bit hard to give you an answer without the specifics. Let me try to see if I can find a way to do it. I think the principle is, how do you provide experiences that are amazing in themselves, like Star Wars. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think it's a mind-blowing play experience, and it, makes that universe come to life. And then what comes after that is equally powerful and exciting and self-contained, but also builds the platform as a whole, and adds layers that are unexpected. That's a little bit the type of thinking moving forward.
And so, I guess you've said it a little bit there, but with Star Wars as a starting point, rather than say a homegrown Lego theme, what do you feel the benefits are of working with Disney on this and working with an IP partner in something that's already established?
Yeah, I mean, we considered different options when we were thinking what's the first, universe where we want to land this. And even though we considered different options, it became clear pretty fast that Star Wars was almost like an unbeatable option. Because, well, first of all, we have a partner that we've been doing a fantastic partnership for 25 years. So we knew that was needed and that was there. And then it's again, how much can the consumer take at once, right? And we know that they already know this world. They already know the world of Star Wars. There's so much iconography, recognizable characters, sounds, play in there that provided just like an amazing shortcut and playing, playground for this technology in it. So we had the partner. It was a perfect universe for the play. And of course, it's one of the biggest, most loved, recognized IPs in the world. So those were the things that made it pretty obvious, pretty fast. And then the first time that we discussed with Disney, they immediately saw the opportunity. They immediately got it, and they said, "We're a partner for this. Let's do it together." And so it felt right from the beginning.
So obviously there's lots of other kind of technology-infused toys on the market and things. Sort of like, how did you look at those, and what's different about the smart play proposition to other tech toys?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to talk about how others do it, and I don't know how others do it. But I think something that feels to me very special for us as a company is that play leads the way, not technology. As I said it before, it's always about play. And this technology, in principle, should be like invisible for kids, right? They shouldn't be thinking it's Bluetooth or a chip or whatever. It's like a magic brick, right? And I think that's really important. And the fact that there's no screens, that it's intuitive, that it's simple, It's not prescriptive, so we are not telling the kids what stories to do. We're not telling them you need the X-wing to do this and that, otherwise nothing will happen. Play with it however you want. If you want to have a battle with, between an X-wing and a TIE fighter, you can do that. But if you just want to goof around with an X-wing and put a different pilot in it than what the story tells you to do and build your own story, that's there too. So I would say how true that is to who we are as a company about free play, open play, creative play, and play leading the way rather than technology. It's probably some of the things that I feel will set this apart.